Hey, it's Brock here with Rock Hill Farms, and today I want to talk about hydrostatic transmissions on a compact tractor. And I want to talk about comments that I get all the time that I think are missing the mark. And to be honest, on a certain level, I understand where they're coming from, but for the most part, a lot of these comments, I don't agree with the mindset behind them. So we're going to talk about two different things. One is durability of a hydrostatic transmission versus a traditional gear drive transmission. And then second, I want to talk about the way you use a machine and the idea of overworking a machine. So, you know what? Before I do that, I want to show you some of the comments. So a lot of these comments are about burning up a hydrostatic transmission, which is exactly what I'm going to focus on in the second part of this video. The other comments are about making fun of my small tractor. And I've put together a video that I'll link to at the end of this video about how capable these small tractors really are. So as you read those comments, you'll see that a lot of people are telling me I'm going to tear my machine up, and I'm doing things that I think are reasonable to expect this tractor to do. The word tractor, if you look at the Latin origin of the word, it means to pull. It's a machine designed to pull. And people are telling me that by trying to pull with it, I'm going to tear it up. And we're going to get into that as we talk about the durability of a hydrostatic transmission. But first, I want to say, let's assume that those comments are right, and that trying to pull more than I can actually pull is just going to tear the machine up. Then why would I buy it? I mean, I bought this machine, and I spent a ton of money on this machine because I had a lot of work to do, and I needed a machine to do that work with. I didn't buy it to sit around and look at it. And I wonder if, reading these comments, if people are literally just afraid to use their tractor. There's such a thing as being conscientious and saying, I'm always going to get a machine that's a little bigger than the work that I need to do, and then I'm going to service that machine meticulously and be very cautious about how I use it, and it will last longer. But man, is that a luxury. Like, I've got all kinds of different work I need to do, and to say I'm always going to have a machine that's overclocked, oversized for the work I need to do, I don't have that luxury. I can't have I've already got a big machine and a small machine that I've spent a fortune on. And then people saying, well, you don't have a big enough machine for that. Well, I'm just going to use what I have. So one instance that this comes up is with the hay baler. Now that baler looks really big. It's longer than the tractor. But I've had a bunch of people tell me that they use a 25 horsepower hydrostatic tractor to run one of those. They are not that load intensive from a PTO standpoint. Now I can feel when that baler cycles, it shakes the machine a little bit. But if you look at another attachment that I've got with the tractor, sized to the tractor from the dealer, my rotary tiller will put a lot of strain on this tractor. If the ground's wet and I move a little too fast or just different soil conditions, it will bog the engine down to where I'm setting at 540 RPM, and then I can hear it and I look and that RPM's dropped to 4,000 or below, and I've got to slow down or lift up or change what I'm doing. That is putting a lot of strain on the tractor. That baler never did. Another example, pulling it. I pulled it out to the field. I went over some hills and stuff. I never felt it pulling or pushing me. But when I used the box blade that I got with the tractor, when I load it up and dirt's piled between the machine and the tractor, it will bog the tractor down till I can't pull anymore sometimes. So that's a lot harder on the tractor than that baler. I also got killed for trying to pull a plow with this tractor. Well, this tractor has as much horsepower or more horsepower, and it's heavier than a lot of gear drive tractors that pull that same plow. So I don't think it was unreasonable for me to try. Now, it's probably not a good idea to find a task like that the tractor struggles with and then just bang your head on the wall and say, I am going to force this machine to pull that plow. And so I didn't. But I just don't understand if that's going to tear this machine up, why did I buy it? Another example of something that could be hard on the tractor is the stump grinder I had. It was using every bit of the horsepower this tractor had, and sometimes that grinder, if you got just a little too fast, it would actually kill the tractor. And those, I would say, that's probably pretty hard on a tractor. And it made me a little bit nervous to run it long periods of time, run it all day. I decided I was looking at doing that as a side business, and I said, you know, I don't think I want to run that like every day, all day on my tractor. That's probably a little excessive. But for around the property, when I need to remove a stump, I bought this tractor to work. Here's another point I want to make about these hydrostatic tractors. They are very popular right now. A large majority of all compact tractors that are sold today are hydrostatic. There are thousands and thousands of them sold every year, and so there's tons of them all over the country. And what I do for a living is talk about tractors. I've published 1,100 videos that have over 100 million views. I've gotten hundreds of thousands of comments. And these are tractor owners talking about their tractors. I spend a lot of time in Facebook groups. I go to shows. I visit dealers. My life revolves around talking about tractors. And you know how many times someone has told me that their hydrostatic transmission failed on their tractor? One. And it was today, because I went into a big Facebook group and I asked, has anyone here had their hydrostatic transmission fail? And one person said that they hadn't had their tractor very long and the transmission had failed twice. That sounds like a manufacturer's defect when it's one person and the fix didn't work, and every brand, every product of every design has a lemon. I went through this whole ordeal with my transmission on my truck failing, and everyone leaving all their comments and reading through it, and every single brand you can find someone who's had some kind of random catastrophic failure when it was new. But there needs to be a certain number of them before it's a trend. And if really working one of these hard destroyed the transmission, then you'd see guys all over the place in video comments, on the forums, in these Facebook groups, talking about transmission failures. And it just isn't happening. And so here's how this went chronologically, what led up to this video being made. I was criticized a lot over the last couple weeks for trying to pull a plow with the tractor, and the tractor was struggling to pull it. I was criticized pretty heavily, people saying, you're tearing up your tractor, this guy's an idiot, his tractor's not going to last very long, and it got in my head. And yesterday I was using a box blade, and I'm sitting there going, oh, I probably shouldn't be doing this, I'll tear my tractor up. And I thought, what in the world are we talking about? I bought this thing to pull, I bought it to do work with. If it can't handle a box blade, why do I have the thing? And I'm not going to let it get in my head where I'm afraid to use my machine because of comments people leave. And so I was kind of annoyed as I was running that box blade, and I thought, am I crazy or is everybody else? And so I went onto Facebook and I made a post on there, said, let me know if you have had a transmission failure on your tractor or you know someone who has. And there were a bunch of people making comments, as long as you don't overwork your machine or this and this and that. It's all speculative. There was only the one person who'd had a failure. So I said, there's a little bit of research. Then I watched all the videos I could find on how a hydrostatic transmission works. Then I called and talked to a friend of mine who owns a tractor dealership. And they've been selling tractors for over 20 years. They sell multiple brands. They're a full-service dealership where their customers bring their tractors back in for service when something breaks. They do warranty repairs, all that sort of thing. And I said, how often do you have a tractor come back with a hydrostatic transmission failure? He said, never. They've had, I don't want to overstate it or misquote it, but the way I took it was that he could only remember one, and it was a defective part, a manufacturer's defect. They're just not having failures with these hydrostatic transmissions. And my expectation is that on the comment section of this video, there'll be 24 people who leave a comment that their hydrostatic transmission failed. And that seems perfectly reasonable. Like, somebody's had a failure. No part, no machine, and no piece of equipment is perfect and never fails. But if it's a very low percentage, then why are we spending so much time worrying about it? And why is there this generalized perception that hydrostatic transmissions are weak and prone to failure? Because I'm just not seeing it out there. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. I called to say, hey, are these hydrostatic transmissions failing? And he said, no. We don't see failures with these hardly ever. But what we do see failures with is the clutches on a modern shuttle shift. I said, well, so you see more failures with the shuttle shift and with the clutches than you do with the hydrostat. But I'm guessing that's a cheaper and easier repair to change a clutch. Said, not at all. They've got 8 hours of shop time, which, shop time's not cheap, plus the parts. It sounds like people are spending probably thousands of dollars on this repair. And with an old tractor, maybe it was a do-it-yourself. I don't know if it is or not now with the way that these modern tractors are. But that's outside my expertise, and it's really beside the point. What he's telling me is that if you have two tractors, say in this size range, that are 38 horsepower, and one is shuttle shift and the other's hydrostat, the shuttle shift is more likely to have a failure than the hydrostat. And when people tell me, oh, don't do that, hear that whining noise, you're going to blow up your hydrostat, it makes sense. And I start to worry about it. And, oh, my hydrostat. Where are the people having all these failures? So if I'm wrong and they're out there, let me know. I'll do an update. But right now I'm not seeing it. One term that he used is that a clutch is actually a wear item. It's a matter of fact that it's going to wear out and need replaced. And everything eventually needs replaced, but just found it interesting that someone who does service at a dealership would tell me that. Now, one thing that drives people to feel like their hydrostats are going to fail is that high-pitched whiny noise they make when they struggle. So you're doing a little bit of work, you push into a pile and it won't push anymore, and the tractor sounds like an overgrown power wheel, makes this higher-pitched whining noise. Well, what you're hearing is the hydraulic relief. When it reaches a certain pressure with the hydrostatic fluid in your transmission, there's a relief valve that relieves that pressure. Because if pressure just continues to build, that's when you tear something up. So there's a pressure relief valve that prevents you from blowing up your transmission, I suppose. And and that works. Now, the negative to it is if you're building that pressure and you're always hitting that relief point, you can overheat your transmission fluid. Now, most hydrostatic tractors nowadays will have a separate hydrostatic cooling unit. Looks like a radiator. Mine is right in front of the radiator in my engine compartment. So one piece of advice I would say is make sure you get a hydrostatic cooling unit on the tractor that you buy. But I've been researching today, what would lead to premature hydrostatic transmission failure? What are the issues? I've been trying to find any piece of information that's useful to this video. And the two main things I found is don't let your fluid get hot or contaminated. So if you're plugging in and unplugging dirty hoses and you're not cleaning them off and cleaning out your ports, you're introducing contaminants, and that could lead to a problem. You need to make sure you're changing your hydrostat fluid and the filters for your hydrostat. And you need to make sure that your machine has a hydrostatic cooler. If it doesn't, maybe take it and let it cool off if you're working it hard. So what is the point of the video today? I don't really have one. I don't care what anybody buys. I don't necessarily think hydrostat is better than gear drive because there are definitely advantages to a gear drive. What I want is an intelligent conversation taking place between tractor manufacturers, tractor dealers, YouTube content creators like myself, the viewers, just the people who are buying tractors, people who are making tractors, people who are selling tractors. I want there to be intelligent conversation that helps the buyer make intelligent buying decisions. And that's what this video is supposed to do. It's just one piece of that conversation. And like I've already said, the advantages to the gear drive transmission are obvious. Everyone already knows that you transfer more of your engine horsepower to the wheels. And you know, it's a proven technology, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't ever break down. So I appreciate you taking time to watch this video. I'll put links on the screen to a couple more of our videos, and I'll see you next time.